At Subway, start 2010 right with surprisingly low-fat choices. The Piled High Subway Club or Turkey Melt, fresh toasted under bubbly cheese. Both are part of a Subway Fresh Fit meal, a simple way to enjoy eating better. Subway, eat fresh. The BS Report is a free-flowing conversation that occasionally touches on mature subjects.
First of all,
This is the BS Report with Bill Simmons.
it might be cool, I don't know. And if it's not, I don't care.
The BS Report with Bill Simmons.
Bill Simmons works for ESPN. He's also named the Sports Guy, and he writes a comical sports column. He must be a popular dude.
The BS Report.
It's got a real dirty sound, like a rusty steak knife cutting through a well-aged steak.
Now.
Here's Bill Simmons.
All right, part 2 of the BS Report. We taped this on December 29th. Ric Bucher, Marc Stein, both from ESPN, on the Subway Fresh Take Hotline. We call it the three-man pod, the three-man weave, something like that. We haven't figured out the title yet, I'm like. Here it is, part 2. Orlando. What do we make of this team?
I'm still a fan. I mean, they have definitely been an enigma the way they've started this season because they have more depth than anybody. I don't think there's anyone who can dispute that. I mean, they've got 12 guys who can play. I mean, you don't have that in the NBA. And maybe that's an issue. I
think it's an issue.
Maybe they have too much depth because it just has not looked like the happiest group that we've seen.
Why would it be? They have two guys who just signed big deals and thought they were hoping to play and sit on the bench, basically do nothing.
I'd say there's two things. One, I agree. From 1 to 12, just in terms of talent, it's the best, or overall, it's the best Orlando team I've seen. Quite honestly, the sense that I get is that one, they're not the happy-go-lucky team that found its way to the finals. Now there's a pressure of you're supposed to go to the finals. That's what they're playing for now, and that brings a whole different element where, anything that they did was gravy. Well, now the bar is set, and they need to meet that. And every game that they don't look like a team that's going to the finals is a disappointment. They've never played with that before. I believe the other part is, where's the leadership on that team? Dwight Howard still acts and plays like a really young guy. Vince Carter's never had that kind of personality. Jameer Nelson, has the demeanor. I don't know if he has quite the game to back that up. And so when you have all these different guys who want to play and you are trying to organize it, who's that one guy you look to that gathers everybody and says, you do this, you do that, you do this, and everybody, without question, listens to that guy. I don't see that guy on that roster.
Well, I mean, they have. I do think you have to say, between Jameer's injury and starting the season without Richard, those were two, significant speed bumps that they had to get over. But I need to go back here to, I'm still mystified why the maestro of the trade machine, or whatever you call yourself, why are you down on them having Gortat now? And not only do they have depth, they've got trade chips to play with. I don't know why you don't love that.
Well, Buke and I seem to be the only two who are bothered by the fact that this team that had stumbled into this huge strategic advantage with Hedo and Richard at forward and basically had upgraded from Courtney Lee to Vince Carter for nothing, why you wouldn't have just ran it back with the same team but with Vince Carter in the Courtney Lee spot? Cleveland would not be able to match up with them this year.
To have Hedo with all the guys they have?
What do you mean?
You can play Jameer, Hedo, Vince, Dwight, Richard.
Why not?
That's.
Why not?
I don't see how you could trade for Vince and bring Hedo back.
All right, but don't get rid of Hedo and then replace him with Gortat and Bass who don't play. That doesn't make sense.
But you might need those guys, and if you don't need them, you have two fantastic trade chips.
First of all, Brandon Bass is not a trade chip. Who are they getting for Brandon Bass? They're getting another bad contract. That was a bad contract when they signed him. And what team has...
You don't think they can move Brandon Bass?
No. I think they take another bad contract back for him. I think they could move Gortat to Houston or Dallas, potentially. But
I believe people look at Brandon Bass now, and I think the secret is out on him.
Totally agree.
People thought he was on the come and that he could play, and now people are like, man, he's been in a lot of different places and he can't get off the bench.
Here's my
good coaches, and he can't get off the bench.
A stupid aside, but I wrote this over the summer. These teams that passed on DeJuan Blair because of his knees, and he goes 37th. First of all, he should have been the first pick of the second round, because even if he only plays 2 years for you, you still have this guy at $500,000 a year. Why wouldn't you do that over spending $18 million on Brandon Bass? That doesn't make sense. I'd rather have DeJuan Blair for $600,000.
I can't.
I can't that Blair slipped, because that stuff happens all the time. What I can't believe is how he slipped to the Spurs. How are they always there waiting to scoop these mistakes up? I mean, that's astonishing to me.
And Carl Landry, same thing. These guys slip. Carl Landry slipped. Brandon Roy slipped to 7th because the Celtics had him in for a physical. That Doc looked at his knees and they were like, "This guy's not going to be playing basketball in 5 years," and they didn't take him. Maybe we need to.
Some of that, but hey, look, it's with a lot of these guys. You have to go. They end up going and they end up going to the right situation in a team that needs them. There's a lot of elements that allow DeJuan. I'm not convinced that DeJuan Blair would be doing what he's doing with another team necessarily.
I totally disagree. That guy was a monster in college. I personally watched him demolish a couple of teams. I just think he would have done it anywhere.
I can't even believe you're comparing what a guy did in college.
I'm just saying, the guy's a gamer and he plays hard and he has specific skills that translate to NBA success.
Sam Young, what impact is he having in Memphis?
I watched him guard.
All of those things were said about Sam Young.
I watched Sam Young guard Gilbert Arenas in crunch time last night.
Okay.
That's not bad.
Is anybody talking about Sam Young?
I just did. He did a nice job at Gilbert Arenas.
And because I introduced him, and that's the first. My point is, and look, Chase Budinger, I love what he's doing with Houston. I think he's one of those guys who's a better pro than a better college guy. But he's with a coach, and he's in a situation where he got minutes. And Adam, look, I'll give Hollins credit for using Sam that way. There are so many coaches that wouldn't do that. Pop said to me a thing that I thought was brilliant, and I know there's so many coaches who wouldn't do it. He goes, I'm not trying to coach DeJuan Blair at all. All I'm trying to do is teach him our system. He said, because I can't figure out how he does what he does at his size, and I don't want to mess him up. You know, I mean, there are very few coaches in this league who wouldn't want to be trying to teach DeJuan a drop step move or you got to do this, and probably be impinging on what he does. And that's why I say I'm not convinced. And you look at all the other pieces that they have in San Antonio. You don't game plan for DeJuan Blair. You don't even think about boxing him out. There's other guys there, and he takes full advantage of that. He's not a quality player.
I would say he's a trade piece,
I don't know that he'd be doing this someplace else.
Well, Orlando, do we think they have a higher ceiling or a lower ceiling than they did last year?
Well, it's hard for me to say because I didn't have them as the title contender last year.
I still do.
You like them still?
You like them more than last year, Steiny Mo?
Well, I mean, I'm giving you guys the Hedo thing, and I'm a huge Hedo fan, but I like their team. I just think they're absolutely stacked, and their warts bother me less than the Boston and Cleveland issues.
No, I liked them more last year because I just thought they were a weird matchup, and now they've lost that weirdness and they're conventional. And the only thing I got to say, you know, in their possible defense for why they went the Bass Gortat route instead of Hedo, these teams that spend day in and day out with their own players, maybe there was some stuff with him that we didn't know about.
There were definitely rumblings in the finals that the way Ariza went off, that was kind of a last straw with Hedo. Like that kind of convinced them, okay, we're moving off Hedo. And then the other thing, like Duke said, and I know I'm pretty sure we've covered this ground before. Again, the Lakers were the first team in 20 years to lose in the finals and come back and win the next year. And that's why I like changing up their team. I don't know that bringing back the same group is a great idea because the bar has changed, the pressure to get back there, you failed in the finals. I don't think it's such a bad thing that they were bold. And if your owner's willing to spend that money to grab extra guys like Gortat and Bass in case you need them, I mean, what GM's going to say no if your owner says, yeah, I'm willing to spend that money to make sure we get Brandon Bass as our 11th guy? You're going to take.
Right. Well,
I like doing that. I like doing that to get Vince Carter. I don't like doing it to get Vince Carter and having him as a substitute for Hito Turkoglu.
Yeah, as your main
I like going
creator.
for broke and adding Vince and going, wow, that's an awful lot of offensive power. And
I just don't know that
Courtney
all
Lee
those
was a
guys
good
can play
defensive
together.
player.
I mean, that's just, you're asking a lot.
We talked about Sheed before. The one thing I do like about the Sheed signing is for some reason he just owns Dwight Howard. He just knows all his moves, and it's just one of those things.
That's the thing. I mean, Rasheed, the Pistons were just in the Magic's head, and a lot of that was Rasheed. And not only that, Perkins shut Dwight down the other day.
Yeah, I would say the Celtics.
So they're just loaded with Dwight answers. And
Orlando,
that's their thing. I mean, that's what.
Orlando does not want to play the Celtics in a playoff series this year, whereas last year they did, and maybe that will be the ultimate value of the Rasheed deal. We brought up Memphis.
By the way, I'm going to have to be turning this over in a minute or two.
All right.
For Steiny Mo to finish up with you.
You're leaving?
Quick.
I got TV to do too, my friend.
Oh, you got to go. All right. Quick Memphis thing. Most shocking story of the season?
No, Sacramento Kings.
Not more than Sacramento, but they're up there.
So you'd rank Sacramento 1, Memphis 2.
And I'd have to throw Houston in there too. But those are the three for sure.
Memphis is not as much a shock as Zach Randolph is a shock.
Yes.
Like all the other pieces in Memphis, that to me works. The fact that Zach Randolph has fit in so well and is playing the way he's playing, to me, that is in Memphis. That to me is extraordinary.
I don't even think he's
the All-Star ballot committee. Not one of my shining moments to not fight harder to get Zach on the ballot.
Offensively
we didn't have Chris Kaman on there either.
Defensively, I'm not sure he's there, but offensively he's there. I think a bigger shock for the Grizzlies.
So when you're throwing up 30 and 15 every other game, I don't think defense matters if we're talking All-Star ballot.
Well, but the reason it doesn't matter is because of the bigger shock of that team is the fact that Marc Gasol is actually good. Who saw that coming?
Man, go back and check the podcast.
I saw him in the preseason, and he lost all the weight.
He lost 30 pounds.
Fantastic, but I thought the weight loss was actually going to hurt him. Like he just didn't seem like he had any kind of presence. And
he was good last year.
That's why you don't make.
No, he wasn't. He was a big fat guy last year. He was a skilled fat guy. He was a skilled fat guy.
Well, and that's why we didn't have Zach on the ballot and we didn't have Kaman on the ballot. Basically, both of those teams have multiple centers, and we chose Marc Gasol over Randolph, and I know they say Zach's a 4, but Zach is more of a back-to-basket player than just about anybody. And Kaman and Camby, and we went for Camby. So
I cannot believe you're not giving me credit for telling you that Marc Gasol was good.
Well,
we talked about this with the Paul Gasol trade, the Kwame Brown trade.
You said he was talented, but the guy lost 30 pounds. He's a totally different guy. Will you throw some water on people like myself who love watching Tariq Evans? I know you have some sort of counter take on him, Buke.
No, I believe yours was correct in that he's not a point guard. He's a LeBron James small forward.
He's
a guy who can make plays, but he needs a point guard next to him.
What about
this is the water that you throw on the whole Kings, and I hate to do that because they're such a good story, and it's good to see is that they're playing free and loose. They have absolutely no pressure on them, no matter who they play against, and they're great at home, and they can't get it done on the road. Now after it'll be next season that we'll find out what Tariq Evans is made of, because they'll come into next season with expectations, and he's got to go to the next level. And figuring out how to be a small forward and directing a team to win games night in and night out, that's a big step. And I'm not going to say that he can't do it, but nothing this season is going to tell us that he can't.
But to be doing 25-5 with that jumper is astounding.
Ugh.
His ability to get to the rim is amazing.
When he was in Dallas, he was so big next to Kidd.
Yeah.
Kidd made a living off being, just about the biggest guard there was. He is just massive. I mean, he was huge compared to Kidd.
Well, I wrote in my trade thing, I wrote about how obviously they're going to have to move Martin because you can't play those two at the same time. And the Kings fans, a couple of them were like, well, wait a second. Do we know that for sure? How do we know Tariq can't be like an unconventional point guard and all that stuff? So I guess the thinking would be he would play like Brandon Roy is used by the Pistons, where he's the shooting guard who also runs the offense. I just don't see that in Evans's game. I can't imagine him doing that. What do you guys think?
Bigger problem for me is
take a look at it only because it's so early and he's already exceeded expectations to this degree. I mean, who's to say he can't add something of a floor game? I mean, I agree that it's usually an instinct thing and you either have it or you don't, and that's always been one of my main knocks going back to our pal Devin Harris, that, he just doesn't have it and you're not going to get it. But, I mean, Evans is so young. I mean, do you really want to rule it out? Because, I mean, I think if you looked at those overtime games that they just lost, it wouldn't have been so bad to have Kevin Martin out there for them to have somebody to go to at the end who actually knew how to finish a play. I mean, they looked lost out there.
Well, did you see how the Lakers were defending him? They weren't just daring him to go left. They basically like built a whole road for him to go left. No, go left. Really, we're and he just couldn't do it. And he didn't really know what to do or how to handle it. So, yeah, maybe they're better off waiting. I mean, but the question is, if you hold on to Kevin Martin for too long, does he lose trade value if it becomes apparent that they can't play together? So.
Yeah, but also you could say if you hold on to Kevin Martin, his contract just got 1 year shorter, and that makes him even more valuable as a trade asset.
Yeah, but the flip side is that they've got to start paying for some of those other younger players coming up. And can you afford to pay and keep those guys when you have Kevin Martin at the number you have him? To me, the bigger issue is Kevin Martin is not a defensive player at all. And if you're going to have Tariq there and you're playing a Beno Udrih, you have to, that third guy has to be able to defend. And I don't see that you get with this team, I don't see that you get enough value out of Kevin Martin's scoring ability with those other pieces that warrants his $10, $11 million a year. And so, sure, you take a look, but my sense is you take a look, and this is the difficult part for Martin is, they're rolling without him.
Yeah.
He's used to having the ball a lot. He's now got to find a way to fit in and not screw it up. And that's tough. You want to blend in.
And defensively, I just don't think defensively those two can be your guards. Like, you'd have to play Evans at small forward and do it that way, because Kevin Martin can't even guard shooting guards. He's not going to guard point guards.
All I care about is Omri Casspi coming to Dallas. So
last question before Butte goes off. Stein and Mo are keeping you on. Has Omri Casspi vaulted above Dirk and Nash for you, Stein and Mo?
He's pausing, ladies and gentlemen.
Wow!
We didn't freeze the podcast. He's got to stop and think about that.
I mean,
you're bringing in factors now that go beyond just basketball.
What score? Can you believe it? I feel like I've just witnessed history or something.
I mean, you'd even have to put him above, like, if a Cal State Fullerton guy became good.
Oh, my goodness.
Right? What would the hierarchy be? Team Israel, Cal State Fullerton, and then Dirk Nash.
My people have been waiting a long, long, long time for this moment.
And actually, he's the perfect kind of guy, too, because he really, embraces it. Like, he loves it.
Thing. You talked about, Buke said how this team feels no pressure. This guy played for Maccabi Tel Aviv, where they are legitimately expected to go undefeated.
I gotta go.
All right, Buke, hang up. Well, thanks for being on, and we'll do this again sooner than later.
Yeah, a year from now. Okay.
Talk to you. All right, keep going, Stein and Mo.
Just that, how Buke was saying that the Kings have no pressure on them. This guy played for Maccabi Tel Aviv, where they are expected to go undefeated. Every game they lose is a national crisis. Playing for the Sacramento Kings, who are rebuilding, that's just not going to faze him. I think that's one of the reasons why he's been able to pull this off. But, let's be honest. He's talk about exceeding expectations, the way he shot the ball. Nobody saw this coming.
Well, the guy, the Kings saw coming because they really wanted him, right?
Well, they loved getting him, and I don't think there was any question that, to pick him in the 20s was a more than reasonable pick, but that they could play him extended minutes and expect him to, shoot in the 40s on threes. They didn't expect that. Not right off the bat.
Well, I hate workouts, and I think they're stupid and the whole thing. But by all accounts, this guy was like killing people in workouts, right? Wasn't he? Like he was banging people around and stuff.
His ferocity. I mean, he's a great energy guy, and that's what everybody liked about him coming in. But he's proven to be far more skilled than we were led to believe. I mean, the word in Israel was this guy can't pass, he can't shoot. I mean, he can pass. His shot is improving. So I mean, when you have an energy guy who can do that stuff,
I love him. I mean, between him and Jerebko, whatever that guy is, Jerebko, those are two of the most fun rookies that have come in the league in a while. Just for random.
Whoever drafted Jerebko, I'm not a fantasy guy, but if you snag Jerebko in a late round flyer, you're a pretty happy kid right now.
Is it Jerebko or Jerebko? I always get it wrong.
I thought it was Jerebko. But
I think you're right.
I have to admit that my Swedish pronunciation is not the best. So
I love that guy. I went to a Portland-Detroit game, and he shut down Brandon Roy for a quarter and a half completely. Like, Brandon Roy did nothing, and then as soon as he came out of the game, Brandon Roy started doing stuff. But I thought that was a very nice pick. And Caspi, I mean, this second round, at basically from 20 on, I guess from Ty Lawson on, the draft turned out to be a lot deeper than I think we were prepared for.
How about your Grizzlies, though? Why didn't they take Tyreek?
You would have, because
scores, but just
they felt like it was repetitive with OJ Mayo.
I mean, that has to be it. I also think that was a Heisley pick. I talked to him at Summer League, and he basically made it sound like he wanted Iverson. I mean, he's getting involved in the decisions more and more.
The Thabit thing was so uninspired. There's so many different directions.
Well, if you're going to sign Iverson because you want to sell tickets, just draft the guy who played at Memphis.
Right. Or draft Ricky Rubio and hope you can get him. Do something. Do anything other than take the beat. That was too bad. I mean, they're almost a 500 team at this point. They might have even gotten there last night. I can't remember, and they basically got nothing out of a number 2 pick. He doesn't barely plays. Kind of sad. Brandon Jennings, a little too much hype at this point?
Well, I thought that was pretty revealing when, anybody who's on Twitter all day long, I love those guys. I mean, I love the kind of just how accessible some of these guys have become. And, there are probably at least 100 NBA players who are on Twitter, but, there's that select handful that are just on there every day bearing their soul. And, he's pretty much up there.
Yeah, that's not a good thing, potentially.
Well, it's good for us.
It's good for you. You talked to a lot of you.
He said, he got fined. He said, I'm quitting Twitter, but he hasn't. And then, what the other day he basically said, 55 was a blessing and a curse. I mean, his 7th game. Even Wilt needed longer to score that many points.
The Red Sox fans will back me up on this. This happened to Clay Buchholz. Threw a no-hitter, during his first – he hadn't even been up with the team, I think, for like 2 months, something like that. And it was a bad thing. And I do wonder if 55, and I watched that game, and he's making threes. I don't think he's not a 3-point shooter like Stephen Curry or somebody like that. He just was really hot, and I hope that doesn't change his mindset for how he plays. It seems like it has a tiny bit.
I mean, I guess this is where maybe the good news is that he's in Milwaukee, and maybe that keeps him a little bit under the radar. Because admit it. I mean, when you look at a Bucks box score, what's the first thing you're looking for? How many points did he score? What did he shoot? I mean.
Well, I think that's been the best thing about this season. Hasn't really been that exciting of a season, but you've had basketball rejuvenated in Milwaukee, Memphis, and Sacramento to some degree. Who would have expected that? Bizarre.
Yeah, I mean, in the West, the gap between one and everybody else seems pretty significant. But the good news is that there's a lot more decency in the West than we expected. The flip side is, holy cow, is the East pathetic.
Do you think through 30 games this has been Nash's best season?
Well, I don't know if I can go that far, only because I think when he first came there and just transformed them, I mean, what was their start that year? It was 29-4 or something like that. I mean, that was incredible. I mean, that really felt like the whole league was on notice because the way they were playing and just, nobody was expecting anything from that team, and just they kind of became the darling team of the decade, the way the way that season started, pretty much until Duncan made that 3 in the San Antonio series. But when you consider the depth issues they have, he doesn't have guys who can finish like before. I mean, he's the guy is ridiculous, though, just the kind of shape he keeps himself in. I mean, the diet he stays on.
Right.
I mean,
well, it's interesting. He cut out sugar this year.
He does. I mean,
He found out all these. I mean, because physically, I don't think he's slipped. Like we talked about, like Dirk and that. I mean, I'm sure on a back-to-back night, on the second night, maybe his body can't recover like it did. But I think the ceiling of his game has remained the same as it was 5 years ago.
You know, I mean, his shooting is just ridiculous. And it's like in the fourth quarter now, you expect the guy just, you know, I'm not, you know, I don't have the clutch stats at my fingertips, but, you know, I think they would reflect that, you know, as a quarter shooter, I mean, he pretty much is top 3 and, you know, top 1 maybe. I mean,
well, we have his percentages, and his percentages for field goal percentage, 3-point, and free throw are the highest they've ever been. And this is a guy who was already making history with those 3 categories combined. I think it's amazing because I don't think his team's very good. You know, they have no rebounding,
I mean,
no bench.
You would think that the quality of shot he's getting is just not the same because there's not as much there to take attention away.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, team defenses should be focused on him more than ever.
And he's their crunch time scorer now.
Although I do think Amari is starting to get a little pop back. I mean, he's never going to get back probably to, you know, where he was at his peak, but you know, I think he is starting to look a little better.
More importantly, it seems like the guys actually like playing with each other for the first time in a few years.
Their chemistry is really good.
I'm happy for Nash.
Again, it's just, you know, that everybody kind of in the back of their mind has that, you know, can we beat the Lakers? Can we really beat them? And I mean, that depresses me. You know, I mean, I still don't know. You know, I would still probably say that, you know, well, the Nuggets with Billups, you would say, are still probably the closest. I mean, it's either them or the Mavs. It's a coin flip. But do those teams really believe they can beat the Lakers in a 7-game series? And I think, honestly, neither could say that they do.
I don't think the Nuggets have the size, but both of those, the Nuggets and Mavs, have the one thing that you need is somebody who's not going to be afraid to have a showdown with Kobe in the last 3 minutes. You know, and that it all starts there because you're going to have to win 2 close games in a series. Orlando couldn't do it last year in the finals, but if a team beats the Lakers before the finals, it'll be a team where Dirk makes 2 game-winning shots, you know, something like that.
Well, let's also say, I mean, even if you hated the Artest-Ariza swap for the Lakers, even if you thought that was a stupid move, what you do have to say is, you know, Artest is probably going to guard Melo as well as anybody does.
Yes.
So, I mean, that has to demoralize Denver even a little bit more, knowing that, you know, their big weapon, the Lakers, you know, probably have as good an answer for it as anybody. And then, you know, again, the Lakers' length, you know, I don't think anything necessarily bothers Dirk, but, I mean, they do have a lot of different looks to throw at him, more than most teams have. I mean, Odom, Artest, I mean, they've got options to counter those teams' best weapon. Biggest name to get traded before the deadline? I'm leaning towards one of the Wizards. Obviously at this point they're going to say that they're not doing anything, but that's definitely what people around the league expect, that Butler or Jamison is going to go. I don't think Boozer moves now. I mean, Utah making that luxury tax deal last week, their luxury tax bill went down from, you know, $12 million to under $5 million. I mean, that's still a lot of luxury tax for them to pay, but it's probably something they can live with for a year because, you know, their luxury tax bill will probably not be as high as that again. So
right.
Can they live with paying $5 million in tax for 1 year? Probably get to the summer and then figure out what to do with Boozer. So I think everyone around the league is, you know, there's a lot of teams in the West that would love a shot at Caron Butler. So if the Wiz get to the point they say, all right, you know, we'll move this guy, make your best offer. I think David West is someone else you have to look at in New Orleans. I mean, they clearly don't have enough. They're a 500 team now. Are they, you know, if they're going to break it up, there's going to be a lot more interest in David West than Okafor.
Okafor's been not good. I would say there's no interest in him. I would hope not.
I
can't imagine why anybody.
I mean, I think we were all surprised he already got traded once.
Yeah, and that was the rarely seen bad trade for both teams. Has not helped either of them. So you don't think Bosch? You don't think there's any chance for that?
I just think the problem with Bosch is everyone's going to be so afraid about keeping him. And unless it's Chicago or Miami, I don't see a team out there that can trade. If Chicago, Miami, or the Knicks, if one of those three teams can find a way to trade for Bosch, okay, then you would think you got a shot at keeping him. Those are all, those have to be three cities that he would like to stay in. But, I mean, if you're the Golden State Warriors, you've got assets, but how do you trade for Chris Bosh with no guarantee that you can keep him? I just don't think you can take that risk.
What about Houston?
I mean, again, they would never do it unless they're sure they can keep him. And yes, they have a nice situation. Yes, it's a great organization. If you're Chris Bosh, why wouldn't you want to go there? But, Bosh has said, he's basically said he does not want to play in Dallas. Now, I don't know if that extends to all of Texas. He's from here. But he said repeatedly that playing that close to home doesn't really excite him. Now, is that just some sort of PR spin or just some kind of line he's throwing out to get people to stop asking him trade questions? Maybe. But
do you think...
I have not heard that Houston is a team he's giddy about.
I had some scenarios in my trade column about how the Knicks, if they really want to create the cap space, getting rid of Gallinari, Hill, and or Chandler to get rid of the Curry contract and the Jeffries contract. Do you think Donnie Walsh is realistic, or is he just still in a fantasy land?
Well, I mean, he still has a little time, so he probably, I'm sure he wants to keep convincing himself that he can move Curry or Jeffries. I mean, and let's face it, they had the flurry of moves last year when they moved out Zach and what was it? I'm forgetting the other one now where they got Harry. Oh, when they moved out Jamal Crawford.
Right.
Even when they pulled those moves off, I was surprised. So, is there someone who might take on Jeffries? I guess it's not completely inconceivable. I mean, I can't see anybody taking Curry on.
I would absolutely take on Jeffries in a heartbeat. Because I actually don't think he's that bad. I think he could be the ninth man on a good team. He's a really good defensive player. If it's going to be like an Eric Maynard type deal, where you get Jordan Hill and you get Jeffries and you just give up an expiring contract, why wouldn't you do that?
Well, I mean, Donnie Walsh hopes you're right because they got to move one of those guys.
I also I don't think Curry is totally untradeable, but I think they'd have to play the Gallinari card. And it'll be interesting to see if they go there because the Knicks fans do like him. I like him. I don't love him. I think he's a really good shooter, and I worry about bad backs. I don't think he's a sure thing.
I do like him though. I mean, I'm just a sucker for shooters. So I mean, he does jack some shots up though.
Yeah, but he has no conscience, which and also defensively, putting him with David Lee is a disaster. But I got to say the revelation of this podcast was that you moved Caspi ahead of Dirk and Nash.
I did not say that.
Well, you kind of did, though. You kind of did. So if Man City made you a Caspi uniform, your head would explode.
He is the heir. Let's just say he's the heir apparent.
Hey, have you ever seen a movie called The Damned United?
Oh, yeah.
What'd you think?
I absolutely loved it.
Good. I really liked it as well.
Did you watch it?
I did. I thought it was excellent.
They did an incredible job of, recreating the 70s English feel. I mean, it was really, really good. Now, the issue in England, though, is that everyone says the book that it was based on, has all sorts of fallacies in it, and all the guys who played for that Leeds United team say that, it didn't happen that way. And so many of the principal characters are no longer with us that there's no one to really refute or back up the accounts. But if you can look past that, I mean, I absolutely loved it. You're a bigger film expert than me. What did you make of it?
Well, I might end up writing a little something about it at some point. So I don't want to give too much away, but I thought it was excellent. I mean, it's just really well acted. It's at the very whether you like English soccer, whether you care about the subject, whatever, it's just very well done with really, really good actors at the top of their game. Not to sound like Roger Ebert, but it's just well done. I can't imagine anybody who likes movies that wouldn't like this movie. So there you go. I did feel sad, though, with Leeds United that I had to look up to make sure that they were once in the Premier League because I had never heard of them in my 3 years of following the Premier League.
It's astonishing. I mean, they're a huge, huge club. I mean, it's to see where they are now. I mean, City in the 98-99 season, they got relegated to that league, and luckily we were able to move back up in pretty short order. Leeds has been down in the third tier for 5-6 years now, and it's just, it's just something that I've always wanted to do, and it's just, as a fun story, what would happen if we had relegation in American sports? Just, for you, Mr. What If, that's just a fun...
I had the whole back and forth with Gladwell, and some reader sent me a great email about how it would help the NHL more than any other sport because they could do the Canadian American conferences, they could have a 24-team league, and then have like 8 more that were relegated and boost up the minor league hockey league in America and Canada and do it that way. And it did make a lot of sense. That would be interesting.
It's just obviously the problem is, in American sports, all the minor leagues are affiliated with the big league teams. And over there, these are professional teams. There's 92 professional soccer teams in England. These are all independent of each other. So, here it's a totally hypothetical conversation just because, you can't compare the D League to, the second tier of English soccer. It just, the comparison doesn't work. But, just as a discussion, it's fun to think, because the beauty of that is every game means something, and that's obviously something we're sorely lacking here.
Well, I think that's the big solution for the NBA if they ever really want to get serious, is cutting this down to a 60-game or a 65-game season. What happened to the Spurs this weekend was a disgrace. They're starting a game on Sunday, less than 24 hours after, the last game, and in 2 different cities. How can you do that? And
well, the next time you have Stern on, since you're the one with the juice to get him on your podcast, you got to ask him why. Why will they never go? Why will they never consider cutting the schedule? I think we know it's all about money and TV, and just like you're a season ticket holder. Don't you have to pay for those 4 exhibition games whether you want to or not?
Yeah, but as we saw from the net gate receipts that's trickled out, how much money are we talking about? We're talking about if these teams, if the Grizzlies make $370,000 for a home game or whatever, but the Lakers make $950,000. I wonder how much money they actually make.
Well, also, but the TV though does the TV money, which for all the NBA's issues in this decade, the TV money still went up.
Yeah.
How much of that is dependent on being able to deliver to the networks all these games?
At the very least, it should be 75 games. They could get rid of 7 pretty easily, and everybody would be better off for it. And the quality of play would go up a little bit, and I think these guys would be a little more rested. You'd see a better playoffs. And that's something, Stern, for this guy who has all this juice, it sometimes doesn't seem like he uses it in benevolent ways. To me, that's a benevolent thing. It's how can we make life easier for our players and extend their careers? Let's cut down the schedule by 7 games. But, it doesn't seem like a big priority.
My wish list is a lot simpler. All I want is an all-star game in England. Let's extend the all-star break by 1 day on each side. All the players who aren't in the all-star game will be thrilled that they got a longer break. All the players who are in it will be pumped to go to Europe. To me, that seems like simple logic, and that, everybody says that has no chance. So,
yeah, you mean taking a week off basically for All-Star? So you go
make it a 5-day break.
Well, why not make it like an 8-day break? How great would that
be to go to London for the All-Star game? The players would be into it. I just think it would rejuvenate All-Star weekend.
Maybe we'd have an All-Star game in Israel.
Let's do it.
Caspi's homecoming. You have a Caspi jersey, don't you?
I will be trying not to cheer in Dallas when my man is dominating the rookie game.
Do you have a Caspi jersey? Be honest, yes or no?
I do not.
Why isn't this a bigger deal?
I should probably add the word yet, but I do not.
But shouldn't this guy kind of be a bigger deal? I mean, this is Israel's first good NBA player ever.
SI just did a piece on him. I mean, I think he's getting some pretty fair pub.
All right. Guy should be a hero.
He is over there. I mean, they're watching his
game here.
This morning. I mean, they love the NBA over there. I mean, that's why it was, it's been so disappointing for everyone that they've had a handful of guys drafted and nobody's been able to make it. I mean, I remember I was a Clipper beat writer my first year covering the Clippers. They drafted Brent Barry. This had to be the summer of '95.
Yeah.
I go to Israel for vacation and start talking hoops with some people, and they were like, "Oh yeah, Brent Barry, the Barry brother who can play." And I just couldn't believe that they knew about Brent Barry over there.
Wow.
I mean, they love their hoops.
The thing I really liked about that Sports Illustrated article was that they attacked it from a way that could potentially almost, because we're so freaking politically correct now, the Jewish people are excited that there's a Jewish NBA player. It's okay. It's okay to be excited about this, that this guy came from Israel and now he's in the NBA. And they did it in a way that, kind of had fun with it a little bit, I thought, And for whatever reason, in 2009, it's almost like you have to tiptoe around that stuff. Well, why do I have to tiptoe around it? Every Jewish friend I have is excited.
Journalism, though, has one of the ways it's changed for the better. I don't know if that's the right terminology, but we always joke about Dirk and Nash and, my man crushes or whatever. But I mean, we were so schooled to never admit those kind of things and just keep it all under wraps and, you never admit your biases. And I do feel like there is, even in the era of political correctness, there's a little bit more freedom, with the internet to, admit these are, I love these guys or whatever.
Right. All right. That makes sense. I'm excited for it. I think, I think that team in general, which it seemed like they were just going to move, and now I don't know what happens. It almost seems like maybe they have enough momentum now to stay.
If you want to talk about teams that might be active at the deadline, I mean, I know everyone in Sacramento is quietly getting revved up here because the Maloofs sold their beer distributorship. They got rid of the WNBA team, and apparently now their financial situation's a lot better. So the feeling is whereas last year they were just giving away any contract they could, that now they might be back in the market for making a basketball trade.
And, you look at that Simmons-Miller trade now. Not a bad trade. Simmons has been awful for the Bulls. You could argue that he might be having the worst season of any player that is conceivably decent or better. He's just been awful.
Especially when you think about how well he played when he got there.
Right.
Nobody saw that coming. And then now it's just doubly disappointing.
Yeah, I mean, and if they're in a position where maybe they want to clear cap space and go for the Bosh-LeBron combo, that contract hurts them and it's probably untradeable. Brad Miller is an expiring contract, but he's taken a deep, deep fall off the cliff from where he was in the playoffs.
If they have enough for one max guy, they're going to be lucky.
Yeah, well, they'd have to trade Kirk Heinrich.
And they could move him. I think there's still a market for him.
He's got one of those contracts that recedes. It actually drops, I think, maybe? Or am I thinking of Nocioni?
He plays the right position. I mean...
Yeah. Well, that's somebody that, if they just wanted to clear cap space, Kirk Heinrich is exactly what the Celtics need. A combo guard who can play defense and, we could give them expiring contracts and big baby or whatever. Or just expiring contracts and money and 2 number ones if they just wanted to dump the guy. If they really thought that, I'm not willing to rule Chicago out with the LeBron Bosh combo because you got, they have the same agent, right?
Bosh and Wade have the same agent.
Bosh and Wade have the same agent. Bosh and Wade's agent is tied with World Wide Wes, correct? LeBron is also tied with World Wide Wes, as is Derrick Rose, and World Wide Wes based in Chicago.
Isn't everybody tied to World Wide Wes?
Well, but I think people underestimate World Wide Wes in general and the hold that he has over some of these guys. And if World Wide Wes, I think he's going to have more of a say in where these guys go and if they go as a package and things like that. And
if you're the Celtics, the more I think about this,
yeah,
they might be able to win it all with the team they have now. But I don't know if I would go for that one over-the-top piece because they've got to start thinking about the long term here too, with all the age on that team. So I mean, do you really want to bring in Heinrich? Are you sure you want to go forward with him and Rondo?
If Heinrich as your third guard, then you're hoping Ray Allen signs for the huge discount next year. Rondo and Ray Allen basically switch contracts next year.
You think he's going to take that big of a cut?
Well, I'm saying, so Rondo and Ray Allen make like $18 million combined this year. So next year, Rondo's going to be making like 10 or 11, and you get Ray Allen to sign the Sean Marion deal for 3 for 21, something like that. And then you have enough room. I think
hiring a free throw coach?
If they had Kirk Heinrich, I think he would help them immeasurably. Because now Tony Allen doesn't play anymore. Now Rondo is a backup. You don't have to play him 42, 43 minutes a game. You have a three-point shooter. You have a guy who could guard somebody like what Monta Ellis did to the Celtics last night. Just, we had nobody to guard him. We had to put Tony Allen on him, and then now we're playing 4-on-5 offensively. So, I don't know. It's going to be interesting.
How about Monta Ellis?
When he has it going, he has it going. He'll also have the 9-turnover game occasionally.
How about my boy Nelly's play last night to Radmanovich throwing the Hail Mary into the backcourt?
Have you ever seen...
Goodness sakes, did they get away with one?
Nobody, well, first of all, nobody's still listening. But also nobody probably saw last night. The Celtics did something I've never seen before in 36 years of watching basketball. They guarded the half-court inbounds pass with 4 seconds left, down 2. They guarded it with Perkins and Kevin Garnett. And they basically just swarmed, and the Warriors were so flustered they had to call a timeout. And then the second time they ran really a high-risk half-court lob under their own basket that Monta Ellis chased down like a wide receiver. And ended up getting fouled. But why? I mean, don't you feel like teams should start doing the double guy and the inbounds pass thing?
Yeah, especially the way those guys were jumping. And I mean, Radmanovich, though, was so casual. He just flung it up. I mean, that play was classic Nelly, that he would try something like that. But, I mean, Ellis did make it look easy, but that was crazy. I
mean, first of all, it could have just gone out of bounds, and then the Celtics get the ball under their own basket to try to tie the game. But then also, like, he almost traveled, like he almost broke his ankle trying to stop. There was a lot of funny things going on. All right, we got to wrap it up. Do we miss anything? One last thing you want to talk about?
No, I can't wait to listen. How long did you and Butte go before I hopped on? I can't wait to go back and hear all that.
Probably like 20 minutes.
Was he good?
Yeah, he was. His cell phone cut out, though. Well, we'll come back in a few weeks.
See, that's
before.
Why I was late. I would never do this without being on a landline. I'm respectful.
I know. You respect the podcast listeners. All right, we'll have you on in a couple weeks. Thanks for being in the Subway Fresh Take Hotline. Marc Stein, as always, a pleasure.
All right, kid.
Talk to you.
So I get to sign off. Whoa!
Thank you for downloading the BS Report with Bill Simmons.
Too much fun.
Check out more podcasts at the iTunes Music Store or at Pod Center at ESPNRadio.com.
Peace out.
You laughed, you cried, you turned up the sound repeatedly, and now it's all over. This concludes another installment of the BS Report. And with all the talk about sports, Bill Simmons neglected to mention this important just breaking news. Subway is home to the famous $5 footlong, so celebrate your favorite Subway famous $5 footlong, like the classic BLT or the Big Bowl Black Forest ham and cheese. All stacked your way with the meats, cheeses, and fresh, crisp veggies you love.